A couple months ago, Britain's Labour Party faced one of the worst defeats it has ever seen in nearly 100 years. And it's entirely possible that in the United States, we see a repeat of this. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, for instance, is facing, I believe, 12 challengers. And many people in the Democratic Party, for instance, are trying to remove her. It's entirely possible, one, she loses in a primary because she's nuts, or two, what little Republicans there are in a district flock to the voting booth to vote against her, but moderates vote against her too, voting Republican and flipping a long-standing urban blue district red. This is essentially what happened in the UK. And based on the title of this video and the reason you clicked it, you probably understand why. A British member of parliament for the Labour Party, which is basically their Democrats, said that babies are born without sex. I kid you not. These people are insane. I'm sorry, this is beyond insane. This is paranoid, delusional, psycho world. They believe cult fringe insanity. I don't even know how to describe it because when someone's insane, they're not thinking properly in any capacity. There's no logical, but this is a worldview that is just broken. I don't know how else to explain it, but at least you now understand why Labour lost so resoundingly. This woman, Dawn Butler, here's what Wikipedia says. A British Labour Party politician serving as Shadow Secretary of State for Women and Equality since 2017 and has served as a member of Parliament for Brent Central since 2015. They say that she served as MP for Brent South from 2005 to 2010. So no, she's not the most important or powerful politician in the UK, but she is a member of the shadow cabinet. I got to be honest. I know very little about parliamentary procedure and politics in the United Kingdom, but it's okay. All you need to understand is that this is essentially like the equivalent, my understanding would be a member of Congress showing up on CNN and trying to assert biological sex doesn't exist. And this rhetoric is coming. It's already here in the US. It's becoming pervasive. The Democrats are continually embracing this psychotic, dogmatic, just lunacy. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like there are things that are so wrong, that you just be shocked someone would think it was real. Could you imagine if a member of Congress went on TV and was adamantly demanding that we enact a bill to ban griffins because the griffin problem is becoming so serious? I'm telling you, I hear from my constituents the griffins are attacking at midnight. You'd be like, this person has lost the plot. Like even Alex Jones, who they call nuts, when he talks about, atrazine and the frogs being gay or whatever, you're like, yeah, he's kind of out there, but at least there is some morsel of truth in his version of reality. You see, Alex Jones goes on Joe Rogan and he says something like, 5G experiments with 5G shows an increased rate of cancer in rats. Therefore, they're going to build these towers and need to hybridize humans with animals or whatever, some insane nonsense. And you're like, okay, that's crazy. But Alex Jones found this study that said the cancer rates are increasing. He found a study that says they're experiments for animal-human hybridization, which there are, but that's mostly for like growing a human organ in a pig for transplant. He combines them and then says, here's what I think they're going to do. And you're like, buddy, you got to calm down. But at least he started somewhere, right? These people are literally looking at a little girl baby and being like, I see no biological sex. And you're like, dude, it's clearly female. Everything on this planet. Okay, that's not true. A majority of life. Now, I don't even know if that's true, but a lot of life is sexual. There's asexual, so okay, I'll concede that. And then there's also different ways in which sexual life does things, whatever. But even plants have discernible sex. 99.7% of human beings have a discernible biological sex. I don't even know why I have to explain this. I kind of feel like I'm just saying it, and 99.9% of people are being like, Tim, we know. These people are just ridiculously insane. But I'll tell you what, man. There's something scary about what happened in the UK. Did Labour lose one of the most crushing defeats in their history? Yes. Okay. Did people still vote for them? Yes. And that's what's so freaky to me. That means a few things. Some of these people aren't paying attention. They don't care at all. They go in there and say, whatever, Labour. All right, there's not much I can say about that. It's not, look, there's a responsibility with voting. I get it. And if you don't know what's going on, you probably shouldn't vote, but people are going to vote anyway. And so they probably have no idea who Jeremy Corbyn is. They have no idea that this woman is essentially a flat earther, as far as I'm concerned. I mean that metaphorically, not literally. But then there's something else that we have to contend with. Some of these voters might be complete and absolute morons, paying attention but just too stupid to realize what they're voting for. Or worse still, they might actually agree. And there were a lot of people who did vote Labor. Labor lost, but a lot of people still voted for this absolute psychosis. Babies don't have biological sex. Beep boop. Let's read. Spiked Online says Labor, the political wing of the Flat Earth Society. Deputy leadership candidate Dawn Butler says that babies are born without sex. Here we go again. Another day, another leadership hopeful has said something utterly ludicrous about transgender issues. Dawn Butler, Shadow Equalities Minister and candidate for deputy leader, was on Good Morning Britain yesterday. She was quizzed by Richard Madley on Labor's ongoing trans row. While Butler trotted out the usual cliches that trans women are women, she interrupted Madley to make an astonishing claim. A child is born without sex, she said. A child is formed without sex in the beginning. It has to be seen to be believed. And then sure enough, Andrew Doyle, you may know Andrew as the mind behind Titania McGrath, parody SJW account, says, for anyone who still thinks the culture war is a fringe concern, here is a member of the shadow cabinet claiming that biological reality is, quote, dog whistle transphobia. Here was a member of the shadow cabinet proposing a flat earth view of the world, denying the existence of biological sex. More absurd still, Butler dismissed any deviation from rigid trans dogma as dog whistle transphobia. It is not the first time Butler has engaged in magical thinking. In 2009, she claimed to have been endorsed as the MP for Brent South by none other than President Barack Obama. Who's voting for these people? I got to say, this is flat earth level of psychosis. But let me add one point. Before you read her magical quote about how she thinks Barack Obama endorsed her, what we're seeing here with this politician making nonsensical claims that a child knows is false is a perfect example of the bias on social media. So I talked about Mr. Jones. All right. I know a lot of people probably like the guy. That's okay. I have no ill will towards her, Jones, or anybody else. I believe Alex Jones and this lady and anybody else should be allowed to express their opinions and thoughts even if they're wrong. I actually think this is more psychotically wrong than a lot of what Alex Jones has ever said. I mean, even Joe Rogan says that Alex Jones was right on a few things. You can give him that, right? But what does YouTube do? They ban Alex Jones, they ban conservatives, and when it comes to videos about, say, flat earth or, air quotes here, right-wing conspiracy theories, if you contest climate change, which is very hard to physically grasp for a lot of people, they will call you a conspiracy theorist, a denialist, and they will put a link beneath your video saying, like, this is real, this person is wrong. So let me say that one more time. When it comes to issues of climate change, it is very hard to physically experience a dramatic change in climate or to know that the Earth is warming. Personally, I think it's very important we get a grip on what's happening and better understand it. I think, the majority, the scientific authorities, whether they're right or wrong, all I can do is trust them when they say this is a serious issue and humans are contributing to it. Okay, I respect that. And so what YouTube does is when someone makes a video, they slap a link to Wikipedia saying, here's what climate change is. The moon landing. All these conspiracy theories must have a qualifying link to another site because they don't want you to believe conspiracies. Great. Yet when it comes to these lunatics claiming there is no such thing as biological sex, mum's the word. No one gets banned. No one gets purged. It's beyond a conspiracy. Let me make it very clear when it comes to science denial. I always talk about climate change when I talk about the biological, gender denialists, whatever you want to call it. And the reason for it is I think there is science denial all abound. The scientific community is not infallible. They are not absolutely correct. And they're, in fact, wrong all the time. That's what makes science work. We find something, we explore it, we eventually correct it and improve upon our knowledge. That means even though I recognize much of science is not perfect and it can change, I'm still going to default to what the authority is going to say on the issue because I am not a climate scientist. Now, I absolutely respect the other climate scientists who will put out conflicting information, but for the time being, all I can say is, look, man, If the IPCC and all these other organizations say these are the issues, I can only trust them the same as I trust a doctor to save me if I'm dying. I'm not a doctor. Don't take my word for it, but I'm going to trust the expert. It's not perfect. And sometimes doctors make mistakes, but hey, I'll do that too. Here's the thing. Take the average person and ask them to point to climate change, and they're going to be like, that's ridiculous. You can't do it. You're right. Yet we still recognize the authorities on the matter have said these are serious issues, and we take their word for it. Now take somebody and tell them to point to the woman. And guess what? They can. Point to the man. Guess what? They can. And now for the easiest thing for everyone to understand. The concept of passing. You know what this means? Passing involves basically any type of oppressed group who can pass for the majority group. So I, as mixed race Tim Pool, are white passing, they say, although it means very little considering a lot of people don't think I'm white. And it just depends on the circumstance. Fine. But they say you have privilege because you're passing. That would imply that it's possible some people don't pass, right? Now let's talk about the issues of trans people. Some trans men and women are passing. They call it, trans passing. And this means that somebody who was born male can pass for a full-fledged, biological female. Let me ask you what that means. That if you took this woman who claims there's no biological sex and took a non-passing trans woman and said, was this person born male or female? Guess what? I'd be willing to bet almost all of the time. I mean, that's the concept of passing. People can tell this individual is biologically male or female, no matter what transition they've gone through. Otherwise, the idea of passing would not exist. Therefore, even a trans person who has gone through full transition, it is very likely they will not pass, and you can tell they are a trans person. I'm not saying any of this to impugn the honor and integrity of the individuals or the trans community. None of that. I'm pointing out that if you can look at a baby and see it's male or female, how do you deny that? That to me is insane. It goes beyond flat Earth. It goes beyond climate change because you can't see the curvature of the Earth from the street. Not everybody is going to build a tower or go into space or going to trust what they see in the media. I personally think that's absurd. There's a lot of reasons to understand that the Earth is round and spinning, and you can see all of the evidence around you. But here's the thing. Even watching your toilet flush and witnessing that beautiful Coriolis effect is not necessarily enough to show someone, like, I got a globe right in front of me. It's spinning. It's awesome. So when the Earth is spinning and you get that swirl in the toilet, they're going to say, I don't know what's causing that because I don't see a giant round Earth. Now, I can actually respect that to a certain degree. I think it's silly because it's more like a Sudoku puzzle. All of the pieces around you should show you that the Earth is round. But apparently people don't want to buy it. But you know what I can at least say? Well, they haven't seen Earth from afar and they haven't put two and two together in the logic puzzle that proves the Earth's round. What are you going to do about it? The thing about climate change and flat Earth is that they are grand scale phenomenon that people can't experience. And so they often ignore and refuse to accept it. And it's hard to convince them because you can't show them. You can show them a globe, you can show them a photo, and they will excuse it away. People have said, a lot of flat earthers say, well, the photos of a round Earth, that's just a camera lens trick. The photo of the curvature of the Earth from the high up in the atmosphere, that's just a fisheye lens. And you're like, okay, dude, listen, whatever. You can actually see it from an airplane, but I digress. When it comes to people like this in the Labor Party, who seem to think there's no biological sex, they're literally closing their eyes and going, nope, I don't see anything, because you can literally look at a person. Here's what you do. You take everyone in a room and you say, line up from tallest to shortest, and guess what? Men and women, one side and the other, with a little mix in between. But more, it doesn't even matter. You take anyone off the street and say, point to a woman, and they will. Point to a biological female, and they will. Now, it's true. There are some gender fluid. There is gender construct fluidity. I'm absolutely willing to accept that. Women, some women look like dudes, some dudes look like women. It happens. But for the most part, none of this would be an issue if I should say, the idea of passing would not exist if there was no issue. Therefore, the average person knows it's reality. So what do you think is going to happen when it comes to these people running for office? They are going to get crushed. And every day the left in these Western countries is just, it's like Daffy Duck level insanity. So you know what's funny? I was thinking about why someone like me, why is it that I've always been a moderate, lefty individual, and so is my buddy Adam, who does the podcast with me, the Timcast IRL channel. We're pretty lefty. And so I noticed something interesting when people are trying to classify the culture war, and they said you have the left and the right, and then there are some people who are exclusively critical of the left, someone like me. I wouldn't say it's fair to say I'm exclusively critical of the left, just typically. Well, it's actually really simple as to why. I am more so the average liberal type person in the United States. Most of them just don't speak up and don't get involved. Like, I do this podcast with Adam. He's not involved in this stuff, but he's always been a moderately lefty type urban skateboarding, individual. And he's like, I'm not involved in this. So now he's getting, splashed in the face with cold water with all these crazy stories. And it turns out his opinion is very similar to mine. So what do you think happens? In the UK, normal labor voters, union working class people voted conservative. Not because they're conservatives, but I guess technically they are now. Let me show you what this crazy woman has said. They say science has been a particular Achilles heel for the shadow minister. Not only does Butler believe that human babies are born with no sex, she also has some strange views on animals. 90% of giraffes are gay. You know what? Vote for these people. Do it. Go ahead. What are you talking about? What world do you live in? These people are so... It's a combination of insane, unwell, stupid. I don't even know what you call it. But we are getting to a point where I think we may see the same resounding defeat of the left in our country in America that the UK saw. And I think it's coming. I really do. When you see the Democrats saying illegal immigrants should get health care and that biological sex isn't a thing, regular people are going to be presented with that choice. And after the nomination of the Democrat in the Democratic Party, come, July or whatever it is, May, I think, I don't know. You're going to see all of these campaign ads showing what these lunatics have to say. Ocasio-Cortez at a rally for Bernie Sanders said Bernie Sanders is committed to abolishing ICE and Customs and Border Protection. I don't think you can get much more insane than these people already are. Like I said, you can't see around Earth from the ground. And so I can understand to a certain degree why people think it's flat. Because you're walking in a straight line and you're on a flat ground, right? Of course, it's not that simple, and we know it. The Earth is round. But you can literally look at a man and a woman, and these people would tell you it's not real. So you want to talk about 1984, where they say the party wanted you to deny what you could see with your eyes and hear with your ears and all that stuff. It's beyond that. It's like, if there was a sign in the sky and they said, nope, there's nothing there, don't look, you'd be like, okay, you understand why. But they're literally trying to tell you that the biological functions which create life and has been around for billions of years and resulted in us isn't real. So if biological sex doesn't exist or babies don't have it, then why don't same-sex couples have kids? Where do babies come from? Perhaps they still think it's the stork. I have no idea. But it would seem, based on this crazy lady's idea, it's the doctor who decides. Like the baby is born and the doctor goes like, woof, woof, and the baby turns into a man or a woman. That literally makes no sense. I mean, it's beyond making no sense. It is psychotic, paranoid, delusional thinking. I'll add one more thing. I'm not sure any of these people actually believe it either. I think they're in a dogma where they know they're lying to themselves, but they have to say it. Otherwise, the activists will come for them. Here's what they'll do. They'll take your quotes out of context. They'll use that to smear you. That's why I just ignore this stuff. But these are politicians who need votes. And they know that this is going to work because people will vote against them no matter what they do. So they say, you know what? If I want to make sure the left votes for me, I will just say whatever I have to say to be in the good graces of the insane activists. That way they don't come for me. Congratulations. You've earned this. If Bernie Sanders gets the nomination with the people around him who believe very similar things, I believe we're looking at a McGovern situation. Trump's going to win, 500 electoral votes. Who knows what? It's going to be a wave, a sweep that no one has ever seen before, but I could be wrong. There are a lot of people saying that Trump barely got by last time. He'll barely get by this time. But let me remind you, Richard Nixon squeaked by in his first election. And I did a whole segment on this. And when it came to re-election, they did the same thing. They said, we're going to defeat Richard Nixon with a coalition of progressives and immigrants. and Nixon won 520 electoral votes. Don't be surprised if it happens again. And if it's true that we follow in the footsteps of the UK, because they voted for Brexit, and then several months later, Trump got elected, what do you think's happening now that they had another general, and about a year later is going to be our presidential election? This, what you're seeing here, will be used against them. I know it's the UK, but we're going to see campaign ads. It is going to be bonkers. I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel, and I will see you all then.